Nope, still don't get it. Do you get it? What did you say? I'm just trying to fix my mask. Yeah, we're just talking about grades, assessment versus practice. I'll just show you some examples. Okay, so what would happen if a student did amazing on all the assessments, but did absolutely none of the practice assignments? Well, let's see. This student got all fours. Wow, all fours on their assessments, and for their practice, oh, they're all missing. So they have zeros on every single one of the practice assignments. Okay, well, what is the end score? Well, it's a 3.6, in other words, an A. But that's not fair. It's totally fair. I mean, think about it this way. If we're on a soccer field and your teammate Messi comes around and he scores 10 goals, but he was never at practice because he was on vacation for a little while. Is the referee going to come up and say, Messi, I heard you weren't at practice. Is that right? Yeah, I guess that's right. Well, in that case, none of those goals count. No, that doesn't make any sense. So the goals still count. Likewise, if you do well on an assessment, it means you know the stuff. It means you probably didn't need that extra practice. Maybe you need a little bit, but they didn't need that extra practice. Is this likely to happen? Well, sometimes it happens, but not very much. Usually it's because somebody transferred from a different school and they already learned it. Let's say you're studying Hamlet right now, but somebody transfers from a different school and they'd studied Hamlet the previous year, so they already knew this stuff. Or they just learn stuff at home. Maybe they like to read a lot. Or maybe you're coming up to a new science topic that your parents happen to be really big into science and they teach you this all the time. Yeah, sure. So it's very possible that you already know the stuff and then you can do well on the assessments. But is it possible all the time? No, probably not. That's why you're in school, to learn. But if you're that student who happens to know a lot or can pick things up really quickly, I wouldn't get too cocky. Usually those students end up not getting the perfect score because they still don't know everything. And they end up maybe only getting a 3 or a 2 on something, whereas if they could have just put in a little bit more effort on their practice, they could have gotten a 4. Now let's see what would happen on the other side. Let's say you're a student who does all the practice assignments very well and you bomb all the assessments. Well, here's this example. So this student, an average score for the assessment is a 1. So, I mean, they've gotten 1s or 0s and a couple 2s, basically. So not very good on the assessments. And on the practice, wow, got a 4 on average for all the practice because, whoa, did all of the practice assignments and got 4s on all of them. Well, what do they get overall? Overall, they get a 1.3, which means it's a D. So not that great. Well, that's not fair either. They worked really hard. Again, it's totally fair. I mean, think back to the sports world. So if you and your team train really hard and you end up bombing, like doing horrible at the game, that only makes sense. I mean, you're not going to go up to the ref and say, "What? But ref, we worked so hard. You should just give us some extra points. I mean, come on." Because the answer is no. I mean, in professional sports all the time, you have really good teams that train really hard, and then in the end, one team doesn't do very well. And so at that point, they should talk to their coach. The coach should come up to them and say, "Hey, you know what? Looks like we need to train on this a little bit better." Same thing in school. So if you end up studying really hard and doing all your practice assignments but don't do very well in the assessments, that's when you need to come up to your teacher and say, "Hey teacher, can you help me on this stuff? I'm not getting it." Because odds are maybe you're just studying the wrong stuff. You're focusing on the wrong things and they can help you a lot better. Okay, some final thoughts. Regardless of how well you do on your practice, your assessments, the first time around, you can always retake, redo, and you can always get help from your teacher. So just remember, your grade is in your hands. Have an awesome year. So that's how you figure out your grades. You mean I can check my own grades? Oh.